I work as a manager for a well-known video game retail store in a small area outside of a major city in Texas. I have worked there for about 6 months now. And I have a book full of weird, creepy guys that come in. But in the end, all of them are harmless. That is until about a week ago. My store only has about 4 employees most of the year, my store leader, assistant store leader and another guy who is the same position as I am, but hasn't been there as long. Since we have such a small staff, I usually end up working my shifts during the week by myself. I usually love morning shifts, because it feels safer and less weirdos come in. This particular day was pretty normal. The mail guy brought in our deliveries, and maybe 1 or 2 people came in to browse. Then a tall guy about my age came in. For reference, I am 5'2". So this guy towered over me. He went straight to the shelf and picked up a Harley Quinn beanie and then headed straight to my register. I asked him if this was all he needed today. And he said yes. I asked if he had an account with us. And he said he needed to look up the number and then said, "Are you just going to stare at me while I do this?" It took me aback because I tried not to laugh as it being weird humor or something. He kept making very jerky as comments while I rang him up. I don't remember what he said next. But he asked my name. I didn't think anything of it and kept finishing his transaction. He paid off his pre-order for the new Red Dead game and his beanie and started talking to me about what all comes on with the edition that he ordered. He then again said my name like he wanted me to hear what he had said. And that's when I realized I didn't even have my name tag on. Also to add, I have never seen this guy before. And I am pretty good at remembering our customers, especially our regulars. We kept talking about the game in which he said my name in automatic times until I finally said, "How do you know my name?" He then replied very quickly, "You just look like a tailor." This is not my real name. But for the story's sake, my name is Taylor. I said, "What? I don't have my name, tell God we have never met before." He said, "I've never met you before in my life." Well, have a good day, Taylor, and then he quickly left. I was so taken aback. It kind of creeped out. So I sent a text to my store group chat to see if anyone knew him. And none of them did. Later that same day, I just put it in the back of my head and was clearing out the area where we keep items that customers put on hold when I see the same Harlequin beanie with the guy's name on it. He had tried to buy days earlier, but our machine was broken. I asked my boss about, and he said the guy barely comes in and hadn't been in our store in a really long time. This freaked me out even more as it solidified that I did not know him. Also, this may just be a weird coincidence, but I'm a huge Harlequin fan. I even have a tattoo of it. And it just seems so creepy that he bought that the day this happened. I had another encounter with him. And this happened about 2 days ago now. We have to call people when we are having a midnight launch for a game. And since he pre-ordered the new Red Dead Redemption game, I had to call him. My boss told me if I was uncomfortable, then he would do it. But I told him I could manage it. I dialed the number praying it will go to voicemail answers. I tell him this door is calling to let him know that we are having a midnight launch and how he could pick up his game. This sounds weird, but I can hear him smiling and small laugh before he says thank you. Oh, it doesn't seem that creepy over text. But the way he said this gave me a chill. He hung up. And I just sat there trying to think of how he knew my name. Or if I had met him before. I know I haven't met him. I'm a pretty paranoid person in general. So I try to keep these things to myself and I tell myself, I have nothing to worry about. As a side note, I have major anxiety and PTSD from an incident that happened when I was younger. This makes me more alert to the way people actually talk, especially men. This may not seem that weird to someone reading this, but the way this man talked to me went from being so rude to being so cocky and creepy, like he knew he had power over me. This happened a few years ago when I was about 23. I live walking distance of the mall and don't drive. So I walked to and from the mall a lot. One night, I left the mall. And right outside was a man who had just been in a fight. He was yelling at someone and said that he was going to get his son to kill the man. I'm pretty sure he was very drunk. And not the fun kind of drunk. The I better not upset him or he'll probably hurt me kind of drunk. He approached me and continued talking about how he was going to get his son to kill the man he was fighting with. He followed me down the street while telling me delusional stories about he was the richest man in the world. I'm not convinced the son of he spoke to this. When we got to his house, he invited me in for a beer. I probably should have said no. But I figured he would keep following me. I wanted to be rid of him. So I figured if I just had one beer and went on he might leave me alone. So, and what against all better judgments, I went right inside his house. The inside of his house was very sketchy. There was a mattress in the middle of the living room floor. And there was a coffee table with a dozen empty beer bottles and some weed on it. I'm pretty sure the man was drunk high and mentally ill. I watched him open a beer for me. So I'm fairly certain it wasn't poisoned. He also offered me weed, but I declined. Since I've never smoked weed and don't know how it would affect me. Beer I figured was safe enough, considered I normally drink vodka. My plan was to finish one beer and get out of there. The man asked me if I had a boyfriend. I truthfully said no. But immediately realized the smart thing would have been to pretend that I had a tough and very jealous boyfriend. I came to my senses and made up that I had a protective brother waiting for me at home. The man offered to be my boyfriend. I declined, claiming something about how my brother wouldn't like that. At one point, the man said he was going upstairs to get something for me to wait. At that point, I was certain I was about to be murdered. I did not finish my beer. I laid it down and insisted I had to leave immediately before my brother got worried. I got out as fast as I could, ran home. And thank God that I live in a building with a door that locks automatically. I never interacted with that man again. I'm not entirely sure which house he lived in. I sometimes see him walking down the street talking to himself. At one point he came close and I got scared, but he didn't seem to notice me and want to talk to himself. Now, while I'm walking home at night, I talk to my mom on the phone so that it's clear that someone knows where I am. And hopefully no creeps try to make a move on me. This is something that happened to me when I was in my previous house a while back. It all started one night when me and my family returned home from bowling, and my father said that he left the back door unlocked by mistake. But luckily, it appeared as if no one had broken into our house. How wrong we were. Every third night, I'd hear this tapping noise in the floorboards under the carpet ever so slightly. I usually ignored it as I thought it was just a pipe from the boiler vibrating against the floorboard or something. When it came to me playing my video games, I'd find my controllers out of place with a game stack shuffled up. I was kind of a geek that ushes games from A to Z. But I shook it off. At least it took me away from gaming. Sometime I get these whispers of my name and a very low pitch, which I thought was my brother playing tricks on me. So I kept replying, "Go to bed, you crap staying?" One night, my father went into my room and said, "Don't tell me this tapping isn't keeping you awake." I replied back with a nod. And so we unscrewed the floorboards. And then we saw something you'd never, ever want to see in your life. It was a homeless man with bloody bones of an unidentifiable dead animal. He kept staring at my dad with a toothless grin and charged him with a rusty knife. My Chad was trained in the ways of Krav Maga, disarmed the homeless man and knocked him down. In the meanwhile, I called the police and explained the situation. A police cruiser came in under 10 minutes and came and arrested the homeless man. A message came through the post saying that they arrested the man and he was wanted for repeated home entries and the murder of an elderly woman. It said that he was jailed for a life and maximum security prison. I am lucky to still be alive to tell this story. It's definitely one of the creepiest things that. This only happened yesterday, when me and my friend were just hanging out as we normally do at my house. we really bored. So we decided to take a calm walk around my neighborhood, or so we thought. So let me tell you about my blog. There is a hospital nearby in my neighborhood has a history of drug and alcohol-related incidents. But those don't happen very often. Nevertheless, it was kind of dodgy. So me and my friend, for privacy reasons, will call her End. We're talking messing around and such for the entire walk, having a blast in each other's company until we were about to reach my house. Now, we were close to the end of the walk. Let me set the scene for you. We had just turned a corner down their street, with houses on each side, a parkland on the other side, and a 2-lane road separating them. My house is right next to the parkland, and I were walking down the footpath on the side of the parkland towards my house. And so, islands just taking in the views, I guess, I don't know. When we were about 50 meters from my house, I heard a footstep around 15 meters away from me, and then only one. I casually turned around expecting a young teenager, an older person or something like that, because that's usually who we see walking along these footpaths in my area. But what I saw will be burned into the back of my head for years to come. 15 meters away from us, there was this off-looking man. He looked young, I'd say mid-20s. He had a skinny figure and dull, but fierce-looking eyes. He wore a dark hoodie and jeans, and he was looking at me with this unsettling look in his eyes. But the absolute worst part of this was that the man was limping very aggressively, walking very quickly towards me in an almost unnatural. It looked like he was possessed. And he was grinning at me with the most creepiest smile I've ever seen in my life. It was twisted. His head was cocked to the side. And the man's teeth were so yellow. I could see it from 15 meters away. It looked psychotic. And he looked like he wanted to harm us in the most brutal way imaginable. I whipped around and told him to destroy, quickly walking back to my house, because running might make the guy angry and run after us. We don't know if he's high or drunk or whatnot. But I was too panicky. I didn't even mention why we should hold us back home, and turned around and almost screamed and stared in shock. I've never in my life seen someone pull that kind of face before, and turned and almost screamed and ran as fast as she could back to my house. I followed her. I turned around and the man was about 9 or 10 meters away from us. He was moving way quicker than we were with that disturbed broken limp of his. If it didn't look unnatural, it was scary to begin with. It sure did. Now, we are 2 young teenage girls. And if both of us fought against this man, I don't think we would win. Even if he was on the skinnier side and injure. We sped up, and it was a chase, no running, a very close enough. He was chasing with this fast demonic lamp. And we tried to speed up as fast as we could without actually running. We were trying to keep that now 10-meter gap between us. We managed to get home safely. And I peeked through my window by myself and was in shock for a bit. The man is slowed down, but it was still limping. But he crossed over to the other side of the road. For what reasons, I'll never know. He went out of sight and closed the curtain, still shaking after all of this stuff. And I went back to the kitchen to grab some water. My kitchen window kind of overlooks a bit of the parkland, and we have a decent view of it. We both saw the man's link back into the parkland and never saw him after that. Afterwards, I thought about the whole incident and probably got even more unsettled. I only heard one footstep, no pattern, nothing, just a thump on the ground by a sneaker, and that's it. And then hit me, the man was trying to attack and was probably trying to sneak up on us. It gives me anxiety knowing that if I didn't hear that single footstep or didn't turn around, we could have been in some serious situation. That man could have had a knife or a decent type of weapon in his pocket. Who knows what could have happened?